Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're basically acting as cosmic detectives to unpack a unified framework that is honestly nothing short of mind-bending. We're looking at a theoretical mathematical engine that literally generates the physical cosmos we experience every single day. It's called the Semiclassical shadow of the Adelic Langlands program. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but it's this incredibly profound synthesis that bridges pure mathematics with holographic quantum gravity. So, here's our mental map for this journey. First, we'll look at the semiclassical shadow framework itself. Then, we'll build the quantum tensor network. After that, we'll check out the cosmological signatures we can actually see. Fourth, we'll tackle black holes and dark matter. And finally, the ultimate mathematical proof.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the semiclassical shadow framework, the literal engine of the universe.
To set the grand stage here, what we're really examining is a single, massive, unified theoretical framework. It acts as this intricate bridge, translating incredibly dense number theory, stuff like arithmetic intersection theory and non-commutative geometry, into tangible physical realities, things like quantum gravity and cosmological observables. I mean, think of it as the ultimate source code of reality, where the abstract, fundamental rules of mathematics are quite literally compiling the physical universe around us. Now, what's super interesting here is how that raw source code gets filtered into something we actually recognize. Consider the spectral projection engine. The math driving the universe is full of these chaotic, high-frequency, discrete fluctuations. But there are these two mathematical filters, the uniform density distribution projector and the Gaussian unitary ensemble filter. Together, they act like a giant cosmic filter. They smooth out all that chaotic mathematical noise and completely suppress the high-frequency interference. And the result of that filtering? It's the smooth, everyday classical physics we interact with. The framework perfectly describes this as a semi-classical shadow. Moving on to section 2, building the quantum tensor network, the blueprint of space-time itself. This brilliantly illustrates that blueprint in action. What we have here is called a MERA tensor network. That's multi-scale entanglement renormalization ansatz. Notice those vertical lines? Those are the elevators. They map out the real-time unzipping or Adelic decompression of spatial dimensions right from the deep mathematical core all the way out to the boundary. And then check out the horizontal arrows. Those are the rails, governed by Hecke operators, and they distribute that spatial entanglement sideways. This exact structural grid is exactly how pure mathematics discretizes and constructs the very fabric of space. So the crucial takeaway here is that this grid isn't just limitless. Pure number theory strictly limits exactly how much information this space-time grid can actually hold. By applying something called the Minkowski convexity theorem, the math places a hard, physical cap on the maximum bond dimension of the network. What this gives us is a non-perturbative, entirely mathematical proof of the Bekenstein entropy bound. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that local information density in our universe is strictly capped by absolute mathematical discriminants. Building directly on that, we hit another hard limit. Here we see how Reyes-Singer analytic torsion establishes a strict upper bound on holographic complexity. Because think about it, without this, the quantum gravity equations would just spin out completely into infinite power law and logarithmic divergences. Instead, this principle steps in and forces a definitive mathematical limit, a UV cutoff. It completely prevents the holographic grid from becoming infinitely complex. All right, let's zoom out to section 3, cosmological signatures we can see, or simply put, math in the sky. Let's take a look at two mind-blowing phenomena side by side. On the left, when the early universe decompresses past the Planck scale and symmetry breaks, trapped algebraic units actually create physical or arithmetic cosmic strings with strictly quantized tensions. Then, over on the right, we're seeing the literal echoes of that MERA tensor grid we just talked about. As inflation rapidly expanded the universe, the contractions within that network imprinted log periodically spaced ripples directly onto the cosmic microwave background. And I want you to really focus on these specific numbers, 1.0, 1.58, 2.32, and so on. These are specific prime ratios relative to the number 2. This exact sequence is mapped directly from those ripples in the cosmic microwave background. Guys, these aren't just random astronomical measurements. They are the literal, observable fingerprints of our underlying mathematical engine, showing up right there in the acoustic ripples of the early universe. Now, if you want to pull all these observable signatures together, this matrix lays it out perfectly. It clearly links the abstract governing math to things we can actually measure with telescopes. For instance, the fusion of MERA tree vertices actually injects localized bursts of non-gaussianity into the cosmos. Meanwhile, the analytic torsion we discussed earlier totally prevents the complete regularization of primordial tensor fluctuations. And that locking mechanism? It creates a definitive minimum B-mode polarization floor in space that our instruments can theoretically detect right now.
Let's move into some truly wild territory. Section 4, black holes and dark matter. Say hello to arithmetic dark matter, formerly known as the Lagrangian field within this framework. What's absolutely fascinating here is that its scattering cross-section sits orders of magnitude below our current coherent elastic neutrino nucleus scattering floor. Basically, it exists completely invisible, hiding perfectly beneath our detection capabilities. It's like the universe's ultimate hide-and-seek champion. But it does give itself away. In high-density galactic halos, Lagrangian annihilation produces a highly specific, discrete gamma-ray line comb, so we can literally point our instruments and look for this precise photon signature.
And here's where things get really incredible, because this framework fundamentally resolves the infamous black hole information paradox. Instead of assuming information is just permanently destroyed when it falls in, this theory treats the black hole more like a massive cosmic information hard drive. As the black hole evaporates, it doesn't lose a single byte of data. It safely recompresses all its information right back into the discrete branches of the underlying mathematical network. To wrap your head around exactly how this works, we can view that earlier spatial unzipping process, but in reverse. First up, the bonds inside the black hole max out at what's called the page curve limit. Second, the analytic torsion acts as a counterterm. It erases the internal memory and pushes it out as highly correlated late-time Hawking flux. And finally, as the black hole's mass shrinks down to hit the Planck scale, the continuous space metric just vanishes, and spacetime safely recompresses into finite super-merapixels. The end result? Absolutely no gravitational singularity. Every bit of information is perfectly preserved. As that Hawking radiation escapes, it has to pass through the event horizon, which is basically acting as an active quantum gate array. Looking at the Den-Twist gate array mapped out, we can see how discrete graph automorphisms physically rotate the polarization angle of high-energy photons being emitted near the horizon. This actually creates a totally verifiable effect called frequency-dependent quantum microbirefringence. Basically, we can potentially observe this parity-violating twist in the very light coming away from black holes. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the ultimate mathematical proof and global systemic closure. Follow the logic here with me step by step. This theorem definitively proves that the super-monodromy phase shift, which is basically the quantum phase memory sitting right on the boundary of the universe, is identically equal to the graded super-ramification regulator at the core, specifically at the finite prime. So the math dictating the outermost boundary of the cosmos precisely matches the arithmetic regulating the deepest local interior. It's perfectly balanced. And that brings us to the ultimate systemic closure. By combining that superblock monodromy identity we just saw with the Bailenson formula, we achieve total absolute mathematical closure. It undeniably confirms that spacetime, gravity loops, and all those cosmological observables we talked about are structurally locked together by the deterministic laws of intersection theory. The entire holographic universe at its absolute most fundamental level is just a perfect deterministic number-theoretic circuit. Which naturally leaves us with a totally staggering realization. If the entire physical cosmos, from the subtle ripples of the cosmic microwave background down to the evaporation of supermassive black holes, is just a perfectly balanced deterministic mathematical shadow, well, where do you fit into the equation? How exactly does your own consciousness navigate a universe that's written entirely in pure arithmetic? It's a lot to process. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to explore the profound, beautiful depths of our mathematical reality.